This is the moment a villain finally stopped fighting his fate. But the real tragedy? He spent his entire life creating it. Lord Shen's story is about fate, trauma, and whether the past controls us or we control it. His entire arc explores one devastating question: can you escape your destiny, or can trying to escape it become the very thing that seals it? Today we're breaking down the philosophy of Shen and what his tragedy teaches us about the choices we make when we're afraid. Shen was born into everything, every meal a golden spoon. The peacock royal family of Gongmen City. His parents invented fireworks and brought joy to the entire kingdom. Wealth, status, a legacy of beauty and celebration. He basically had it all, and it should have stayed that way. But his parents kept their distance. They were cold, emotionally unavailable. So Shen was raised primarily by the soothsayer, his nanny, the one person who actually gave him love and made him feel seen. As he grew up, Shen developed this dark fascination with his parents' fireworks. Not the beauty of them, but the power. He started experimenting with turning them into weapons, and his parents got worried enough to consult the soothsayer. That's when she delivers the prophecy.
That if Shen continued down this dark path, he would be defeated by a warrior of black and white.
Now, here's where the philosophy kicks in. Notice the wording, if he continues. This is a conditional prophecy. It's a warning about a possible future, not an inevitable one. The soothsayer is handing Shen a choice to stop making weapons or to face defeat at his own hand. Ancient Greek philosophers debated this exact thing. Is fate predetermined, or can we actually choose our own path? Shen gets both. He gets free will. He gets a clear warning. He could just stop and not pursue the one thing that would inevitably force his fate to happen to him. But he doesn't hear choice. He hears a threat. He interprets black and white literally. It must mean pandas, not his choices. And instead of accepting the uncertainty, Shen decides that he can outsmart destiny by controlling fate through force, walking down the very path that leads to his ruin. So he leads his wolves to the panda village, and it's genocide. Po's mother hides her infant in a radish crate and sacrifices herself to save him. Shen returns home covered in blood, filled with pride, expecting his parents to praise him for defying fate itself. Instead, horror. His father called him a disgrace to the family name, and Shen is banished for his actions forever. For 30 years, Shen lived in exile, just building cannons, building an army, convinced that his parents had wronged him, convinced that they never loved him, convinced that he needs to prove something by conquering all of China. That's when the soothsayer tells him the truth. His parents had died of grief a long time ago. After they sent him away, they had loved him so much that losing him had literally broken their hearts. Shen's response?
The dead exist in the past, and I must attend to the future.
This line reveals everything about his philosophy. He thinks he's future-focused. He thinks he's moved on already. He thinks he's in control, building his own destiny with cannons and conquest. But the whole time, he's completely dominated by the past, by that wound of feeling unloved, by a 30-year-old misunderstanding built on his cruelty that he built his entire identity around. The past he claims doesn't matter is running his entire life. He just can't see it. So here's the thing about prophecies. Sometimes, in much of our media, the act of trying to avoid them is exactly what makes them come true. So the prophecy says a warrior of black and white will defeat him. Shen interprets this as pandas and massacres the village of pandas to prevent it. But that massacre is what orphans baby Po. Po's mother hides him in a radish crate to save his life. Mr. Ping opens the crate, finding and raising Po as his own son. Po grows up in the Valley of Peace, right near the Jade Palace, becomes the Dragon Warrior, and eventually seeks out Shen specifically because he needed to understand what had happened to his parents. Every step of that chain only happened because of the massacre. If Shen had just let it go, if he'd stopped making weapons like the prophecy warned and stopped trying to outdo the prophecy, Po would have grown up in the Panda Village and never would have met Mr. Ping, never would have ended up at the Jade Palace or become the Dragon Warrior, never would have had any reason to confront Shen. and Shen would have just lived a wealthy, rich, and powerful life without having to face a warrior and without needing to use such cruelty and domination to overcome the prophecy that never would have happened. Shen's attempt to prevent the prophecy is the prophecy. He created his own destruction. There's a line from Master Oogway in the first film that applies perfectly here.
One often meets his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it.
That's Taoist philosophy in a nutshell. The more you fight the river, the more you drown. Fighting fate doesn't give you control, it just exhausts you. And there's this other layer to the prophecy that makes it even more interesting. What if the warrior of black and white isn't actually Po? What if it's Shen himself? His plumage is black and white, and in the end, his own canon creates his demise. He was the warrior in black and white who caused his own end. Maybe the prophecy was always about him being defeated by himself, by his own fear, his own need for control. He spent 30 years running from a destiny that he was already working to complete. Now, we need to talk about Po, because Po and Shen are connected in this way that goes beyond just villain and hero, black and white. They're both orphaned by the same exact event, that massacre in the Panda village. Both of them are black and white animals who grew up without their biological parents, who had to figure out who they were in the aftermath of violence and loss, but they also make completely opposite choices about what that trauma means to them. See, we tell ourselves stories about who we are. That's how identities work. We construct narratives to ourselves that explain our memories and our past and justify our present. Shen's story goes like this. I am the son who was rejected. I am the one who was wronged. My parents never loved me, and I'll make them regret it. I'll prove that I was right all along. That story has been running in his head for 30 years, and it's become the entire foundation of who he is. Which raises the uncomfortable question, who would Shen be without that wound? If you took away the resentment, the need for revenge, the conviction that he was betrayed, what's left? Was he always evil deep down? Was it always his destiny to run into the short end of a cannonball? Or could he choose to change at any point? The soothsayer sees this clearly. She watches Shen burn down his own ancestral palace, watches him prepare to conquer all of China, and she asks him,
Then will you finally be satisfied? Will the subjugation of the whole world finally make you feel better?
And Shen says,
As a start, I might also convert the basement into a dungeon.
He almost admits it. He's trying to fill an internal emptiness with external conquest instead of confronting himself. That's why she tells him,
The cup you choose to fill has no bottom.
You can't fix an internal wound with external achievements. Shen believes that happiness must be taken through the world by force. But what he actually needs is internal. He's seeking meaning in the wrong place entirely. Po makes the opposite choice. When he starts having these flashbacks to the massacre and realizes what Shen took from him, he doesn't suppress it or use it as fuel for revenge. He faces his trauma. He sits with the soothsayer, and she guides him towards acceptance. She helps him face the memory without fighting it, and that's when he achieves inner peace. Too fast for my opinion, but at least he achieves it, grumble grumble. Not by conquering the pain, but by accepting it as part of his story without letting it control him, allowing his identity to expand beyond it. Po's philosophy is essentially this: I am Po. Present tense, not I am the orphaned panda or I am the victim of Shen's violence, just I am Po. A person who exists now, making choices now, regardless of what happened before. Your actions are informed by your memories and your own past, but not enforced. He can't control what had happened to him, but he can control his response and what he does in the future. He decides what it means and what he does with it. Throughout the film, you can see the difference playing out. Po is surrounded by friends who genuinely care about him. Tigress, the Furious Five, Shifu, Mr. Ping. He chose to accept and pursue love and relationships. Shen is surrounded by subordinates who fear him. Po processes his emotions and integrates his past into who he is. Shen suppresses everything and pretends the past doesn't matter, while it also secretly holds everything that affects him without his confrontation to his innermost demons. Same trauma of feeling unfit, unwelcome, wrong, and unloved, but complete opposite philosophies about what to do with it. So after everything, after Po achieves inner peace, after he's able to redirect Shen's cannon fire through pure acceptance and some sweet dance moves, They have this final confrontation, and Shen is genuinely confused. He doesn't understand what he's seeing. To him, peace should be impossible for Po because the wound is permanent. Shen took everything from him. If Po did that to him, he knows he would never find any kind of peace. So he asks,
How did you find peace? I took away your parents. Everything. I scarred you for life.
And Po tells him that scars heal, something Shen doesn't agree with. Only wounds heal. Scars are permanent. Po just shrugs and says,
You gotta let go of that stuff from the past, because it just doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what you choose to be now.
Now, this might seem like a throwaway exchange, maybe even a little goofy with Po not knowing the difference between scars and wounds, but it's actually two completely different philosophies of time colliding. When Shen says scars don't heal, he's saying the past is permanent and unchangeable, and you are an inevitable result of the past. What happens to you defines you forever. The mark is there, and it'll always be there, and you are that mark. That's his entire worldview. He is the rejected son, he is the one who was wronged, and that identity is fixed for all time. Po is saying something different. Yeah, the past happened, and it hurt. The facts are fixed. The history is there, but what it means? That changes. The wound doesn't have to scar over into a hard white line. It could fade. It could lose its power over you. It could stop controlling your current identity. The past stops controlling you when you stop letting it. The facts are permanent, but the meaning and how you use it is flexible. You get to decide what your history means about who you are right now. Obviously, trauma and our pasts strongly affect our current personalities, but we choose to pursue relationships and love and friendships and having a good life instead of choosing to fill the emptiness inside us with the pain and suffering of others. Your essence doesn't come before your existence. You're not defined by what happened to you, you're defined by what you choose to do with it. Shen has been letting a 30-year-old wound fester and make every single decision for him in pursuit of his escape of his own destiny. And Po is offering him the same thing that the prophecy offered all those years ago, and that was choice. And here's the tragedy. Shen's eyes widen. You can see it on his face. He understands that Po is right. And then he attacks. He chooses violence even while admitting that Po is correct. He can't go back on it now. Philosophers have a term for this, acrasia, acting against your better judgment. Perhaps some hypocrisy or self-denial going on, knowing what's right and doing the opposite anyway. But why would he do that? Why would someone reject peace when they know it's the answer and they know the direction they're supposed to be going in? Because accepting peace would mean confronting something unbearable for him. Shen committed genocide on an entire village of innocent people, including Po's mother, based on his interpretation of a prophecy that gave him a way out. The director's commentary even confirms this. Shen knows what he did was wrong. He has a moral sense, but there's no way to reverse it. You can't undo genocide, you can't bring those people back. So if he admits he was wrong, if he accepts that his parents actually did love him and he misunderstood everything and was actually pursuing power the entire time and just using that as an excuse, then what was it all for? The 30 years of exile and the pursuit of a singular goal, the building of the weapons, the planning of the conquest, nursing his resentment and hatred, all of it based on a lie that he told himself? That is the sunk cost fallacy at its most devastating. We double down on bad decisions because admitting the error means admitting that all the suffering, all the sacrifice was for absolutely nothing. If Shen accepts that his parents loved him, if he lets go of the resentment, then who is he? What's left? We resist any kind of strong changes like this because we are terrified of losing ourselves and our purpose, even when the self we're clinging to is making us miserable. Sometimes it feels safer to be a consistent villain than to become nobody at all and to start all over. And then there's the pride and ego. Accepting Po's mercy would mean admitting defeat to a panda, an individual subject to the genocide that he caused, the exact species he tried to exterminate. He wanted to eliminate the entire race, the entire species of panda, and now one of them would give him mercy? His ego can't tolerate that. Shen loves his hatred because he's been living with it for so long that it's become comfortable, it's become him. The alternative, peace, forgiveness, change, that's terrifying and unknown, and he'd have to be vulnerable for that. So he chooses violence, and in that final battle, The cannon starts falling towards him. Shen is incredibly fast. He could absolutely escape. I think he knows it too. But he doesn't. He closes his eyes and accepts his fate. After an entire lifetime of fighting the fate that he knew was coming, of trying to control everything, of refusing to accept anything that he couldn't dominate until the very end, in his final moment, he then surrenders just at the end because he knew, ultimately, that he couldn't escape no matter what he tried. The Stoics taught that peace comes from accepting what you can't control. Buddhists teach that suffering ends when we stop resisting reality. Shen spent his whole life doing the opposite, and he only finds peace in death by finally stopping the fight at the final moment. Whether that's tragic or fitting probably depends on how you look at it. But either way, it's the end of a man who chose to reopen his wound over and over again instead of allowing it to heal every time he was given the choice. Shen's entire philosophy was built on a paradox. The tighter he gripped, the more he chased and pursued, the more what he wanted slipped away. But here's the thing, this isn't just about Shen. The film is asking us these questions too, in a very child-friendly way. Are you defined by your trauma, or are you letting yourself be transformed by it? Do you cling to old wounds because they've become comfortable, because they've become your identity? Do you reject help or love because accepting it would mean changing the story you tell about yourself? Are you so focused on controlling the future that you don't realize you're completely controlled by the past? Shen chose his wound over his healing every single time he was given the choice. For all those decades, for all his time, he only ever pursued one goal, and never the one that would reverse the damage he caused. The prophecy gave him that choice. The soothsayer gave him a choice. Learning his parents loved him gave him that choice. Poe gave him a choice. And every time, he chose the familiar pain over the uncertain peace. Poe made the opposite choice. Same trauma, same loss, same pain on different perspectives, but here, Poe chose to accept his pain and his trauma rather than fight it, to let it be part of his story without letting it control his story. And that's what gave him inner peace. At the end of the day, I think that's what the film is really saying. Your past happened, your trauma is real, your pain is valid, but what you do with it, that's yours. Shen only found peace when he stopped fighting, but he had to face the black and white side of fate to get there. Poe found it while he was still alive, and he could manage all of the colors of the rainbow in his fate and his destiny because it's as wide open as he allows it to be.
I love you, Dad. I love you too, son.
After hitting that like and subscribe button, if you want to understand more about Poe's philosophy and how he learned to love life itself despite everything, click here to watch it.